Hello there, and welcome to UK Diesel Electric Railway Modelling. And this is a live stream, as you may have guessed. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about depots, how they operated, and how to model them realistically. So I've been to many shows, and I've been to, I've seen layouts on YouTube and other places as well. And frequently I find people that have got, nice looking depots, but they're small. There's something that's sort of stuck on the side next to a station or something of that nature. But frequently they end up being, the workload that they would realistically have got, have used, was being exaggerated. So you'd end up with like a little servicing depot with lifting jacks, and like an engine on a wagon or something like that. And of course, a little depot like that wouldn't even have the facilities to lift an engine out of a locomotive. So it's not very realistic. And I want to educate people on how things actually worked so that they can better replicate, this for their own model railways. So I have an very old magazine here from 1987. It is November 1987, and inside it's got an excellent little article explaining how these things worked. So, so it says, in April 1987, BR introduced a new maintenance policy for all traction and coaching stock. Under the scheme outlined in the May issue, depots and workshops are classified on a 1 to 6 called levels, determined by the facilities available and the work affected at each location. Now, 6 months later, the policy has taken on a much more clear picture, and the following summary sets out the current category for each depot according to the type of stock maintained. Establishments are also answerable to a sector, normally only one, for their daily work, although other sectors may be free to utilise any spare capacity and may be charged for work carried out. Rationalisation of depots and sector ownership is still progressing. This is the latest known situation for October 1987. The larger establishments, level 5, normally have separate workshops to carry out a category or repair that are not necessarily answerable to a sector which owns the main depot. Motor Power Monthly extends its thanks to Mr. J.P. Marson, Maintenance Policy and Implementation British Railways Board, for his assistance in the verification of this data. So it says so. A level 1 facility is a fuel point. Facility for dispensing fuel, oil, and water to diesel locomotives or DMUs. Minor servicing to EMUs manned by unskilled staff. A level 2 facility is servicing, capable of undertaking A exam work and occasional B exams on locomotives and multiple units, together with work arising and brake blocking, also full maintenance for diesel shunter locomotives. For coaching stock, some cleaning, chemical emission toilet disposal, environmental checks, in other words, cleaning. 2 daily exams, weekly exams, and brake blocking. The facility will have covered fit pit, a small store. This needs to be manned, and be manned by skilled staff. 3, maintenance. This facility will have a traction and rolling stock allocation and be capable of carrying out all levels of exams and the majority of repairs arising. It will have covered pits, staff accommodation, light lifting and jacking facilities. A full range of equipment will be available to meet all exam requirements. Multiple units and coaching stock of all levels of exams, code C cleaning, patch painting, and some body repair. 4, so level 4, maintenance and repair. As for level 3, but having additional capability for heavier repairs. The depot will be equipped with cranes and/or heavy lifting jacks for bogie removal and possibly a wheel lathe. 5, heavy repair. A facility capable of undertaking unplanned heavy repairs and collision damage arising at lower level facilities. May also have the facility for lower level of classified repair, limited component refurbishment, and half-life component exchange. Fueling facilities are not necessarily provided. And then 6, workshop, as in works. A main workshop with full facilities for undertaking all levels of classified and unclassified repairs. So it kind of, gives an idea of TASE. This is the Motive Power magazine, and the information came from British Rail. And so in this magazine, it actually gives a list of the depots and the levels for which work they do. Let's look at, the first one's Aberdeen, Ferry Hill. So level 2 for locos and HSTs and coaching stock. So that would be some servicing. Let's have a look. Bounds Green, which is just outside of London, on the East Coast Main Line. Level 2 for locos, HSTs level 4, and coaching stock for level 4 as well. And something like crew diesel, level 2 for locos. Sorry, level 4 for locos. So, it's a full-size depot. So what I thought we should do is kind of, we'll have a look at some of the depots, for example. So the first one I thought we'd look at is Hull Botanic Gardens. So this is just outside of Hull. Here's Hull Station here. And it didn't do anything really for a while, but then it was reactivated. So you can see that it's a pretty small depot. It takes up a very small footprint. I wonder if this used to be a turntable. I'm not sure. But so you've got some workshop facilities, but you can see it's long enough. Each one of these buildings is long enough for a 2-car DMU, so something like a 150. And if you look, we can compare. Here's a 150 here, so you can see the length of it. And there's the carriage washer there. So when stuff goes in, it tends to get washed as it goes through. But you can see it's fairly modest. It's only got 2 tracks going into it. So that's a pretty small one. And Hull Botanic Gardens is an example of a level 1 facility. So it's, for fueling, you top up with oil and water, things of that nature. So next one we're going to have a look at, and bear in mind I'm talking about the British Rail era. There may be different systems now, but we're going to go up to Scotland, and we're going to go for Corker Hill. So here is Corker Hill, and again, it's a fairly small depot, bigger than Hull, but of course it's doing maintenance for EMUs mostly, or sorry, servicing for EMUs. So in terms of diesel locomotives, it's not really okay. So for locos, DMU and EMU, it's a level 1 facility. So it's only doing servicing. Just your basic stuff, cleaning, checking over things effectively. In a few minutes after I've gone through these depots, I'm going to go through what kind of work would be done. So it'll give you an idea. So next, we're going to go completely the opposite way, near enough. We're going down to London. So we're going to go just outside of London, in fact. Keep going. We're heading out east, and we're going for we're going to Colchester. There we go. So going to Colchester. So Colchester's got a nice station, but just over here is Colchester Depot, and you can see again 2 roads, and this is a level 2 facility. So this would be capable of A exam work and occasional B exam work on locos and units, together with work arising from brake blocking, also maintenance for diesel shunt locomotives. So this is the kind of thing where you might have, a shunter that's allocated to a yard, or maybe a shunter that's allocated further down the line or something like that. So, for example, Ipswich. Ipswich didn't really have a proper depot, so it could have done the level 2 work for Ipswich, or perhaps down I think maybe Ilford would have done work for them. But anyway, so it's a small depot. The next one I'm going to go for is Shirebrook. Now Shirebrook's rough. Can't remember where about it is now. Let's just type it in and see if it finds it. Annoyingly, okay. I'm trying to remember where Shirebrook is. It's up here somewhere. I can't remember where Shirebrook was. Oh my gosh. I gotta remember where Shirebrook was. Chesterfield. No, not that one. There it is. There we go. So this is a small depot. In fact, if we chuck on the time thingy, we can actually look at it a few years before. And I actually think this would be make a nice layout, nice Eastern region depot with lots of glass on it. Yeah, thanks, Steve. I know it was around there somewhere. I just couldn't remember exactly. So I've got a stack of pictures from Shirebrook, and it shows what it was like inside as well. And you can see there's not a huge amount of work that it does. You can see how, it can access, fuel, basic servicing stuff. So A and B exam, and like I say, I think it's got potential to be quite an interesting little layout. I seem to remember someone on YouTube has got a 2 mil Engage version of it. But yeah, I thought as a nice little layout, that would make quite a good one. But anyway, so oh, hang on, sorry, no, supposed to be sharing the map. So again, this is a servicing depot, more than a fuel point, some light servicing, A and B exam stuff, or A exam, mostly a bit of B exam. So So now we're going to nip off towards Birmingham. Let's turn that off. So we're going to nip to Birmingham and to Bescott. Now, I'm going to stick the time traveler on again, jump it back a few years. There we go, that'll do. Let's just tilt it. So Bescott is a bigger facility. You can see this is the old carriage shed, and this is the diesel depot from the 60s. And this is an example of a level 3 facility. So level 3 is maintenance. This facility will have a traction and rolling stock allocation and be capable of carrying out all levels of exams and the majority of repairs arising. It'll have covered pits, staff accommodation, light lifting and jacking facilities. A full range of equipment will be available to meet all exam requirements. So you can see it's a modest sized depot, but it's still pretty big. I mean, look at the size of the footprint of it. The depot itself, you know, is a reasonable size one. It's got 3 roads in it. You know, so it's a much bigger, complicated facility. You know, so we're now going out beyond what most people would have on a layout. Steve, sorry, hi Scrapline. Okay, so with the proper version, the full version of Google Earth, there's a little button up here, and it allows you to look at different time periods, and you can just slide it across to see what things used to look like. So it's pretty useful. I wish it went back further, because I'd like to see what depots look like in 1992 or something like that. That would be perfect for the kind of layouts that I want to build. So now we're going to go back up to Scotland. Let me get it set to north. So now we're going to go back up to Scotland, and we're going to go to Motherwell. So let's just tilt it sideways. So again, it's a large area. These are some coaching sidings. This is the primary depot area. But you can see the size of it. I mean, if we stick the, you know, if we put from one side of the depot to the other, come on, stick, thank you. It's 2,000 feet. So if we chuck our calculator in there, so 2,000 divide by 76.2, which is 00 gauge, you're talking 26 feet here for a fair sized depot. Halve it for N gauge. You know, so it's a good size depot. Again, this is a level 3 facility. Yes, I agree, Steve. Never got around it myself, but I did have the pleasure round about there. In fact, let's wonder. Don't remember it being this late. I mean, look, this is it in during World War II period. But anyway, I had the pleasure, I think that might be it, of seeing the last Class 37 I needed to see. I've seen all but 2 37s, and that was 2 that got withdrawn, you know, before I was either born or, you know, very, very early on. So, yeah, there's some 37372. Annoyingly, I used to live in Devon, and when the Class 50s started to be retired, and Class 37s took over on the DCWA pool, I saw every 37 Cardiff Canton-based DCWA loco, with the exception of 37372, and then we moved to Manchester. And then every time I'd go to Cardiff, it was never around. And every time I'd go to other places because it moved around a couple of places, I'd go there and it was never around. And it wasn't until it was withdrawn here at Motherwell that I finally managed to see it. So yeah, just a random little thing for you. So the next place we're going to go to, and now we're going for the big boys. So we're now going for level 4. Let's turn that off. So we're now going to head down to crew. So we've got crew diesel depot here. And again, I'm going to tilt the camera. Now, in the British Rail era, drop this, that didn't exist, and that didn't exist there either. That was the main facility. And this is a big depot. It has a lot of roads. If we go to crew diesel, let's see if I can find a picture of the main front shed. You can see it was a substantial depot. It had a substantial allocation. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 roads there going through the depot. So it's a big place. You can see fuel and facilities on the outside. They also had some over there as well. But and there you go. That's it. Somewhat more recently. But you can see it's got. I do like the way the ladder goes around tanks and everything. But so it's a big depot. So yeah, this is level 4 facility, maintenance and repair. As for level 3, such as Bescott and Motherwell, but having additional capability for heavier repairs. The depot will be equipped with cranes and all the heavy lifting jacks, a bogie removal, and possibly a wheel lathe. Now, of course, crew did have jacks inside, which they could replace bogies, swap them around. It didn't have an overhead crane in the depot, and so towards the end of its life, it did some F exams, which are like full overhaul type thing work, and they used they used to have a crane that was parked over here, and that was used for in fact, let's use the time traveler and go back. Oh gosh, have used to have anything there by the look of it. But yeah, this is kind of sad to see. But there's the fueling point over there, and but yeah, one of these roads here used to have the crane parked on it. So yeah, this was a major facility. So now we're going to nip off to another level 4, and that is Toten. So here we go. Cross over here, Derby, Long Eaton. There's Toten. And you can see Toten is a monster of a place. I spent days sat up on the hill up here, looking down on the hill up there, looking down at all the locos coming in. I used to go there for Friday nights, go out on a Friday night, spend the night, sleeping on the hill, watching the trains go by, usually with a friend, and we, just watch all the 58s, all but a handful of 58s come in for their weekend maintenance because they're used every day, less work at the weekend. So and you would get a constant supply of coal trains coming in. So a coal train would come in, you know, it would come in, it would drop its, come off its train. It would go around the depot, around this way, then come in to the fueling point, and then would go back on its train and go away. Watching them loose shunt HA coal hoppers, that was fun too. But you can see another major depot. This has, it had a big allocation. It has all the facilities that it needs. And if we look at Toten, we can see inside here it has an overhead lifting crane, so it could lift engines out. This one's on jacks, the heavy lifting jacks. This is the servicing area. And there was a charge end, I think what job was. They had this very, very clever thing that they did, was the roof panels, they would sit them on clips that would sit on top of the loco, because sitting them on here, it gets in the way. So they would, let's see if I can find a better picture. There you go. The roof panel, they would just have these clips, so they could just, store it on top of the loco where they weren't working, and go into the bit that they were working on. There you go, that's what it looked like in the 60s. But that's sad to see, because all these 60s are all sidelined. Oh, this is Crew Wagon Works there. That shows what it used to look like many, many years ago. So it's a substantial depot. So this is level 5 work. So level 5 would be heavy repair. Sorry, level 4 rather, which is your maintenance stuff. Like I say, lifting jacks for bogie removal and possibly a wheel lathe. Now, of course, today it has a level 5 rating because, excuse me, let's take a drink. In the British Rail era, the way British Rail used to operate was about every 7 years, they would send loco off for a full overhaul. So at Doncaster Works or Crewe Works or somewhere like that, Glasgow perhaps. So what they would do is they do the heavy stuff. So if it had a collision, they peel off the metal, replace it, reskin it, repaint, mat it up and repaint it. They would do repaints of locos. They would do engine repairs, swap engines even sometimes, things of that nature. Well, towards the end of British Rail, everything came up for tender, and so in a few cases, Toten and Crewe being a couple of them, Lara also did some level 5 work as well, I think. In fact, they did. They would tender for the work themselves, which of course would reduce the need for sending it away as well. But so they started to do more in-house work. When it became privatized, of course, now they could concentrate on doing any work that they wanted at their depot. So EWS, who took over this, they could, concentrate on, doing any level of work they wished. And this is the reason why you've got companies like GBRF, not GBRF, Colas, who bought Class 60s off them. They got them to do the overhaul. They gave them a full overhaul as a part of the work. So there you go. There's an example of a level 4 depot. And then, of course, there were other places which did the level 5 work. And the level 5 work would be full overhauls. So let's go back to crew. So we go to crew works and get a full overhaul there. And this has lifting facilities. They would do CEM overhauls, which is component exchange maintenance. So that would be that kind of work. Or Doncaster Works, which now no longer exists. But we can have a look at. I don't know if people have seen what it used to look like. So now it's just a big empty space there, which is a real shame. This is the former DRS. What were they called? RFS, the former RFS Works. And that's who does work on EMUs mostly now, and like Mark III coaches and so on. But if we use our time traveler here, there you go. That was Doncaster Works. I remember looking over the wall here and seeing the crash remnants of 56002. There was the famous lawn at Doncaster Works where many photos were taken. There, I've sat on that lawn and had my lunch one time, and I'll give you an example of diesels type 2, 31, 4, and it was 49. And I'm pretty sure I got a picture of it next to the lawn there. There's one. There's a picture of it on the lawn. But there you go, same place. So that would have been parked there. So, like I say, there's Doncaster Works. Sadly, no longer exists. And one thing I'm pleased about it not existing is I no longer have to walk down that alleyway to try and look around the back and see what was around behind here. And it was always full of dog crap. Always full of dog crap. So that gives you an idea. Now, I posted a message on the DMU forum. That's the Diesel Electric Modelers United Society, of which I'm currently the vice chair. So I don't know everything. Surprisingly, I don't know everything. I had vague ideas of the kind of work that gets done, but sometimes you just have to sort of get a refresher to make, because I don't want to give information that's not accurate. So let's just verify it with other people to make sure. So I had some help with a couple of people, and thanks to them, Alan Monk, as an example. So so exams. So you got A exam, B exam, C exam, D exam, E exam, F exam, and G exam. It's a little bit. So they were called Super F exams. Now they're later called G exams. So the idea is that an exam is done based upon how many tops hours, so how much running it's done. So an A exam would be every 55 hours. So it's a visual check for levels of, coolant and oil, and of course, fuel. So, but also wear. So you're checking for wear. You're checking the brake blocks, things of that nature. A B exam would be every 275 hours. So every 5th A exam. So you'd have 4 A exams, and then the next one will be a B exam. This adds a bunch of tasks to the list. So changing filters, lubrication of certain components, and physically checking things, such as generator brushes, things of that nature. So, a more thorough check. A C exam every 825 hours, roughly every fifth B exam also, which adds a bunch more tasks to the list, changing filters, lubrication of certain components, physically checking things. Hang on. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Sorry. The B exam, every fifth A exam, it'll be more involved, including the testing of some systems in place of the visual check. The C exam, checking filters, lubrication of certain components, physically checking things like the main auxiliary generator brushes for wear. A D exam, every 1,650 hours, is a camshaft tension, engine, valve gear springs and pumps, examination of things like the radiator shutter lubrication. So if you got something like a class 50 where they got or class 47s where you got the shutters on the on the roof radiator system. Also lubricating the fan on the top. So things of that nature. Checking the turbocharger, and a turbocharger rundown check. And then an E exam. So this is a big exam. Every 4,950 hours. This is usually a CEM overhaul. So we're talking CEM is component exchange maintenance. So this is where, okay, the engine, needs replacing. It needs to be taken away and stripped and, cleaned and fixed and then reassembled. Well, that takes time. Having a loco out of use while you do that work is time that it's not in service. And that might take, a month to do that kind of work on an engine and then get it returned. So what they would do is they would have spare engines, and then so the engine would be removed, and the replacement, overhauled engine would be popped back in its place, and then the engine they just removed would be sent off for repairs. At which point it would come back later and become the next engine that gets plonked in, then another loco. So something like class 50s. DP2, which was the Deltic prototype 2, so the class 50 prototype looks like a Deltic but is really a class 50 inside. That loco, the engine was recycled and it was used several times in several locos, finally ending up in, I think it was something like 50037 if I remember correctly, which ended up going for scrap. So just recycling the parts, get them repaired, returned. And the same would work for things like traction motors. Maybe swap a bogie out and put a different one in. Class 26s, for example, have two variations of bogie. In one version, let me find a picture for you because it'll make more sense if I show you rather than just describe. In fact, before I do that, let me just get through the component exchange maintenance. So you take things, you check everything as well as replacing any parts. And then for an F exam, which is 99,000 hours, a full overhaul, you strip it right down, you rebuild it back up. And a loco cycle exam might be something like, AAAA, B, AAAA, B, AAAA, B, AAAA, and then, several on, it gets C, AAA, B, AAAA, and so on. And it works out for about 3,400 tops hours. So it's a lot of, it's a whole process that they go through. So let's have a look at some 26s just to show you what I mean. So there are two types of bogie. So if we look here, these ones have got 3 leaf spring systems there. So 1, 2, 3 next to each other. And then other ones, here's one with springs instead. And originally the way it worked was that the 26 O's were, the ones with the leaf springs, and the 26 ones, which had some variations up on the Cantrell grills and, like say, the leaf springs. So there wasn't a lot to them, in fact. But where was that? So this is an early one, but yeah. So that's the kind of workload you would expect. So it's very simple to have to buy a Bachmann Scenecraft or whatever they're called, the resin building, and plonk it on a layout, and then stick lifting jacks and have an engine on a on a wagon or set on the ground or something like that. It's very easy to do that if you don't know how depots work. But a small depot like that wouldn't do that kind of level of work. It would do some servicing. So it'd be A and B exams. It would, they would check the oil, check the water, check the coolant, things of that nature, fill up the sanders, and so on. It would be light work. And then other depots would do more intensive work, and another depot would do, so the bigger a depot, the more work it's going to do. I know that sounds simplistic, but that is the best example. Somewhere like Cardiff Canton had lifting cranes inside. Old Oak Common, Lara. All these depots have, big allocations. And, usually a small depot like, the Hornby one or the Pico one or the Bachmann Scenecraft one, these wouldn't even have an allocation. And if they did have an allocation, it'd be a couple of shunters that would do, just local trick work. They'd operate at, a yard, a couple of miles down the line, or they, things of that nature. So it was just a more convenient place. Okay, we're going to do some servicing there. Aberdeen would be a good example, where they had, a little freight terminal, and they'd have a few little places down the line, but it wouldn't need, they would only do basic maintenance on those sorts of things. Big stuff like lifting engines out, they would go to a large works like Eastfield, or even send it down to a big depot, a works or something. So I hope that gives an idea of how depots work. I hope that provides an insight. So yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. This is a fairly short short one. I'm somewhat known for having these very, very long 4-hour discussions, but I'm going to try and keep this one simple because I'm trying to stick on topic. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.